getting there. Hi, and welcome to Century Hosting's webinar series, Century Learning. And we've had so much fun this year, haven't we, Graham? Talking to so many great people who have so much to share. Yeah, when the WordPress space, Graham is my co-host on the webinar series here, and he's awesome. And today I'm super excited because, I mean, everybody so far has been a friend of mine because, you know, we're awesome that way in WordPress. We know each other. But today I'm so excited that I get to introduce everybody to Kathy Zand. Kathy is with WordFence, and she is with the film Open, that has to do with the open source project that WordPress is. And so she has been a very busy person over the last 2 years. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here. I am so excited to see you. I miss seeing you guys in person, though. It's like COVID, but this is second best. So it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're so happy that you had the time to share with us today. And I know you're a huge proponent of the open source community. You are a huge proponent of site security, and you just absolutely love everything about WordPress. And I think you're probably pretty good at picking locks from what I've seen too.
I actually have some right here. So yes, I could probably do a demo of lockpicking. We give away lockpicking sets at WordCamps when we get to see everyone. So I've got them right here. I'm ready to go to a WordCamp at any time. Just say when. I'll be there, ready to pick locks.
That might be one of the only pieces of swag that I haven't picked up at a WordCamp yet. So I'm going to have to get one of those soon for sure.
Oh my gosh, totally send me I think I have your address, but I don't know if I have your new address. I can definitely get you one.
I know. I just moved. That'd be awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. And I know today's topic is 4 ways that you can secure your site. So with that, we kind of want to turn things over to you. If people are watching and they have lots of questions, please type them in either the YouTube channel link or the Facebook live links, and we will be happy to share them on the screen and have Kathy answer them. You don't have to wait till the end. Please ask questions as you have them, and we'll interrupt her as we need to. So Kathy, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, and
awesome.
Let's go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, great. I will do that. 1 second. All right, I hope everybody likes, oh geez. So I'm trying to share the same browser window. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Can you see my screen now?
We can.
Okay, great. Yeah. I am going to do presenter view. Let's see if that will work. Okay. All right. I hope everybody likes Star Wars.
We're still seeing your notes on top of it.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah. There we go.
That looks better. Awesome. Okay, great.
It does.
New streaming system here. Excellent. Okay, great. I hope everybody likes Star Wars. And this is a little Star Wars themed security talk. And we're going to look at 4 ways that we can make your site safer from the dark side today, because nobody wants the dark side in their WordPress installation. At least I certainly don't. Just to give you a little background on me, I have been working with websites for far too long. I'm older than I look, although maybe I'm looking old. But I've been working with data-driven websites forever. I've been working with WordPress for well over a decade. It was just the easiest way to blog. When I first started blogging, I was using something called Movable Type, and it created all these like flat files, and WordPress used a database. And I'm like, well, that's what I use at work, so I'm going to use WordPress, and I've been working with it ever since. And when I first started, there were a couple of plugins, Hello Dolly, everybody's favorite, getting started plugin, and Akismet. But now we have over 50,000 plugins, and WordPress can do so many different things. So it's been kind of fun to watch WordPress grow and be able to do all the things that it does. And in the last 4 years, I've been working with WordFence, which is a security plugin that's securing over 3 million WordPress sites worldwide. I started cleaning hacked sites. So WordFence has a site cleaning business, and you just kind of knew how WordPress was put together. It was very easy to see where malware was. And I had cleaned it, a few sites, and I had done some hacking when I had first started working in security. I had a bunch of servers and one got hacked. And so I immediately learned a lot about securing a server very quickly. Everybody in security has either started hacking when they were young or been hacked themselves, and they realize how important security is. So that's how I started. So that is what I've been doing. And I'll tell you what, I have seen some things in my couple of years cleaning hack sites at WordFence. I have seen so many different pieces of malware and spam and crypto miners and redirects. I have seen some things, and I'd like to tell you about some of those things that I've seen so that you could learn from people who have had their sites hacked and have had to learn about security the hard way so that you don't have to. And the problem is, because you are using WordPress is, powering a third of the internet, you are under attack. Hackers obviously understand economies of scale. And just as of last week, these statistics are from WordFence and the WordFence Security Network. We have seen bot traffic from almost 200,000 different IP addresses in the last 30 days, and well over 4 billion attacks that we have detected and blocked. Now that's 3+ million websites, WordPress websites. That's not all of WordPress. That's just telling you what we're seeing, and that's a lot. So who's attacking you? Well, could be Darth Vader, but it could be just Darth Vader with some stormtrooper bots. It's not just a guy in a hoodie who's hacking into a website. Obviously, they want to compromise as many sites as possible. So basically what they do is write bots that end up attacking WordPress sites. And they just spray these bots out on the internet looking for vulnerable WordPress sites. Obviously, they understand economies of scale. With WordPress powering over a third of the internet, if you're going to hack something, are you going to hack something that's only installed on 3 sites or something that's installed on millions of sites? You're going to learn how the biggest content management system works, and you're going to find the vulnerabilities there because obviously you want to hack as many sites as possible. What's it easier to hack? Is it easier to hack the New York Times, which uses WordPress? Or is it easier to hack, 10 cat blogs or 100 cat blogs or 100 e-commerce sites? It's much easier to hack smaller sites because they are assuming that you, as the smaller site owner, or even a site owner who, is doing business online, or maybe you just have a brochureware site and you're not really paying that much to it, you know a lot less about security than, say, the New York Times, who has a network operations team and firewalls, and they're looking at log files regularly, and they're watching for attackers because it's a much bigger target. Much easier for hackers to write a bot that goes out and tries to get into 100 sites rather than just trying to get into one big site. But hacking 100 smaller sites can have the same type of profit as hacking a large site. They expect you to not have security awareness, and we're going to foil that. What are they trying to do? Well, the lowest denominator of what hackers are trying to do are defacement tests. So they have these contests, these hackers, where they will go just try to put up hacked by, one of my favorite ones was this guy, Bala Sniper. I've cleaned so many Bala Sniper sites. And he would put up this image that was sort of like his, just kind of his flag of I've been here, his Kilroy was here, image up there, and then he'd put some music on there as well. And then they have these hacking defacement contests. But the majority of hackers are going after the profit motive. They're either going to try to put spam links on your to drive up their sites in search engines, because the more inbound links that a site has, the higher it rises in the search engine result pages. So they're going to try to do that, or they're going to try to use your server's resources to send out spam mailings. They're going to put phishing kits on a website so that they'll send out a mailing to a bunch of people and say, you know, I'm Bank of America. You need to go update your account information. And the link in that email is actually directing to a hacked site that has a phishing kit installed on it, because they can't, you know, it's going to get shut down pretty quickly as soon as, you know, Google and whatnot sees that phishing kit. But, you know, so they're constantly hacking new sites to try to put phishing kits and then try to get unwitting suspects to come and put in all of their banking information. They're going to do malicious redirects to crypto miners and to malware ads to take over computers, those types of things. So the bottom line of what the dark side is trying to do is to make money, and they're going to try to use WordPress sites and your WordPress server in order to do that. So today we're going to talk about the current security landscape, and I'm going to tell you stories. And we're going to learn the way of the Jedi. So 4 key ways to keep your site safe. So Jedi trick number 1 is to use a unique password everywhere. I'm old, so I've been in the boat where I've used the same password everywhere, and it was my password, right? Way back in the day, we could do that. You could have, you know, your dog's name as your password to log into your WordPress site, and to, you know, for your bank and for all of the other online areas where you were logging in into your you know, live journal account back in the day. You could use the same password everywhere, but because so many breaches have happened, you use the same password on a small site selling, you know, a specific kind of tennis shoe that you want to get, and that site gets hacked, and now your password and your email address are in a breach dump somewhere on the internet. And so what ends up happening is hack your email address and your password, and they try it elsewhere. So it's really important to use a unique password for every single site, every single blog, every single place that you're logging in. And one thing that I'm going to challenge you to do is to take your email address and go to haveibeenpwned.com. Instead of owned, it's a P. It's a little hacker fun thing that they do. So go there and put in your email address and see what you find. You can do that later. You can do it now. You're going to find your email address, and you're going to find out that you have been in a breach, and that means that you have a password in a breach somewhere. So use a unique password everywhere. And you're going to need to use like a password manager like 1Password or LastPass to manage those passwords, because you're going to want to start using very complex passwords. You can't use your dog or your cat or your kids or the school you went to when you were younger. You can't use those types of passwords anymore. The internet is just rife with all of these data dumps. And if you go to Have I Been Pwned and you scroll down on that site, you'll see all of the different sites that have been compromised and that have had their credentials dumped into a breach. And those breaches are now in a database somewhere, and hackers have access to them. So horror stories. How has this affected WordPress users? A few years ago, we saw some site cleaning requests coming in from people who had WordPress sites. And these were self-hosted, you know, on Bluehost, on HostGator, on DreamHost, on Sentry, but, you know, they were everywhere. And they were pristine. There was no plugin that had a vulnerability. There was no theme with a vulnerability. They were using strong passwords. They even had WordFence Premium installed on there, and that was blocking all this bot traffic. And they were still getting breached. What we ended up finding out, because we were looking at, you know, what's the commonality, because we're seeing, you know, it's the same kind of attack that's happening here. And the commonality that we found was that each one of these sites was using Jetpack, and they had their self-hosted site connected to WordPress.com. And that WordPress.com account had a password that was in a data dump, that was in a breach, and a reused password. So hackers had found these passwords on the internet, were logging in via WordPress.com, and because that was connected to their self-hosted site, they were able to install a rogue plugin on those sites and compromise them. So no matter where you are, if you have a login on a site, make sure you are using a password everywhere. Another thing that we saw people doing, hackers doing, was I have, my personal website, Zant.com. And I have my email address, which is Kathy@Zant.com. And Kathy@Zant.com has been in a breach, as we saw in the previous slide on my phone. Pretty much all my email addresses have been in a breach somewhere. So my email address and a password in a data dump somewhere. And that password, they try to log into my site all the time using that password. I have a couple of other Zant.com email addresses, and I'll see on my WordPress dashboard, I'll see all of the failed logins, and it's like they're trying, like I have domains@Zant.com as another email address, and that has been in a breach. And so that will end up, they'll try to log into my WordPress account with that password because it's been exposed, and they think, okay, well, I can get into this WordPress site with it, but they can't because I'm using a unique, strong password. And these breaches continue to happen. So it's just really important to use a unique password no matter where you are. Another thing you can do, Jedi trick number 2, is two-factor authentication. So two-factor authentication is an additional step beyond the username and password that are all in, breaches. So say, Kathy@Zant.com and a password are in a breach somewhere, and I'm still using that on my WordPress site. You can use something like two-factor authentication. And there are different apps that you can put on your cell phone. Google Authenticator is one. LastPassword has an authenticator app. 1Password is really cool because they have the two-factor authentication like built right in, so you can see, your username, your password, and then the time-based one-time code. It's a 6-digit code and it rotates every minute. And you can use that to store your two-factor authentication. So basically you log into a site and you put your username and password in, and then it'll pop up with another field, which is the time-based code, the 6-digit code that you then put in. And I would recommend, a lot of our banking system, at least in the United States, I don't know how it is in Scotland, Graham, might be better, but here everything's like all their two-factor authentication is all cell phone based. So you get a code, texted to you via SMS. And unfortunately, we've also seen some breaches with cell phone codes, which I can share with you later. There was a guy who lost like over $100,000 in cryptocurrency using SMS-based codes rather than the time-based codes. So we really do recommend that you use the time-based codes with authenticator apps rather than using SMS. So that is Jedi trick number 2. Are there any questions popping up? Because I have my screen shared here, and so I'm not seeing if there's any questions. If you guys want to and let me know if there are any questions.
So one thing that kind of fits in with your whole theme is Darth Vader only had 34 minutes of screen time in all of the original trilogy, so all 3 of those movies. So hackers don't really need a lot of time to be able to. They don't. Yeah, so that's one of those things. It's like, hey, Darth Vader could do it very quickly. They probably can too.
They do. And the other thing with hackers is that they are incredibly persistent. Like the Target hack that happened in 2013. It's one of my favorite stories about hackers and what they do and the hacker mindset, because they got in via a laptop that an HVAC, like a heating air conditioning guy had, and his laptop was compromised, and they realized it was connected to Target's systems. And they got into Target's systems, but it was HVAC, right? It's like, who would ever think that your heating and air conditioning system was going to lead to a gigantic, massive breach? But they stayed on that network for 13 days, poked around until they found, access points so that they got into all of the point of sale. So all of the cash registers for Targets, like 800 of them. Well, yeah. So it was just like crazy. They might need a lot of time, but they're also incredibly persistent and patient. So Yeah, anyway, on the screen, that story I was alluding to about the SIM porting, which is, above and beyond WordPress security. The article, if you do a search for Sean Kuntz and the most expensive lesson of my life, he goes through what happened when he lost $100,000 worth of cryptocurrency and how his cell phone was basically taken over by a hacker, how they got into his Gmail account, then his Coinbase account. And basically, once your crypto is gone, there's no like, hey, Coinbase, can you get it back for me? It's like, no, it's gone. It's a really great lesson about good security practices. And you might say, oh, that just happened in the cryptocurrency world. Well, what we end up seeing with a lot of hacking is like something like this will, and then you have a lot of like copycats. A lot of people will come along and say, well, I wonder if I can do this and take over, a major site. And so it's good to learn these lessons of experiences, bad experiences that other people have had so that you can apply them towards keeping your world safe.
So, Kathy, I have a question for you. Sorry. So, people that might not be familiar with password
that's
managers,
great. Keep going.
Or are just new to password managers, or may have decided they didn't want to use them because they'd be concerned about if their master password was compromised in some way, that would then give access to all of their account information that way.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for that, or how you protect against that?
Well, I was one of those. All security people are a little bit paranoid. I was one of those paranoid people for a while. Like, I'm not going to put all of my passwords in one basket. I'm just not going to do it. And LastPass had a breach. It was quite some time ago, but they had a breach. It did not expose anybody's passwords, but they had a breach that was something within their systems. But the way they store passwords and the way they store credentials within their systems is rather complex, and hackers were not able to access that. And I don't have full details of the story, but the fact that breach happened with LastPass and that they were able to keep things secure gave me a little more confidence. I'm personally a big fan of 1Password and how they have everything stored. So they have a master password, and then they have another token key, and they give you like this password kit that you need to like download it like a PDF and print it off and hide it away like under your nightstand or something. But the way all of these different factors end up protecting your account gave me much more courage, I guess, and some semblance of safety that my passwords are going to be okay in there. But again, it's...
Sorry, I was going to say something to keep in mind as well is that you can have your account stored in these password managers, but you can also have two-factor authentication enabled as well.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, there's two-factor authentication that's available for your password manager as well. So like with LastPass, just to tell you how paranoid I am, I have 1Password and LastPass. And I am like the queen of paranoid security measures. But so LastPass, if I want to log in on my second laptop there, it sends a code to my phone and I have to authenticate it there. Much the same way like Gmail, if you have Gmail, the Gmail app on your phone and you're logging into your mail system on a new computer, it will ask you to go to your phone and authenticate there. So that's their method. Another method of two-factor authentication is like specific app bindings. So most tech providers are going to give you some kind of method of two-factor authentication. It doesn't always have to be that time-based code. It might be within an app that you're authenticating where they know it's you. There could be biometrics. The methods in security that we talk about is that authentication happens with something you know, something you have, or something that you are. And so within those different parameters, there are different ways of having two-factor authentication. So yeah, definitely put if all your passwords are in one place or two places or three places, make sure that you're watching each of those baskets with those all important eggs very, very carefully. And to tell you another story of the escalated breach of a reused password. This was an incident response, and this was a hack that, if you were reading about hacks back in the day, you would have seen it on the news. It was a very high profile hack, happened with WordPress, and it was a reused password, and it was, someone's name at domainname.com assigned with, that was in a breach with the password that was reused on domainname.com. And I can't give you full details of what happened because it's a high profile breach, but it was a reused password and there was no two-factor authentication. And on that WordPress server, it was a multi-site installation. So it affected multiple sites, not just, one WordPress site. It was a multi-site. So it appeared to be like many different sites that were hacked. And that server had a plugin called PHP exec installed. It wasn't in use, but because that reused password was for an administrator account, they were able to reactivate that plugin, paste in a backdoor into a page, and start executing PHP code on that server. Fun thing, that server was also not patched, and it had Apache Struts vulnerability associated with it, and they were able to escalate from that server into a network situation. And it all started from one reused password. And any one of these things could have been, a barrier. Like they could have had two-factor authentication, that would have stopped it there. They could have not had that plugin installed to give that hacker that idea of like, hey, let's do some fun stuff in this blog post. They could have patched their server. They could have isolated that web server outside of the core network. So then if they were able to break out of that one server, they couldn't get into the network. But what you want to do with these things is establish, sort of hurdles that, a hacker has to go through this. And they're persistent though. So make sure you have good hurdles.
Sure.
And it reminds me a lot of, you want to functionally isolate things. And that's kind of like a hurdle. We see a lot of times sites that come in that need a cleaning, and they'll say, okay, well, this site is hacked and it needs to be cleaned. And we go and we look at it and it's a cPanel account and there's 30 sites in there. You want to make sure that you are isolating your sites. And removing plugins and themes that you're not using is sort of a functional isolation. If you have a WooCommerce site, and you also want to do a membership site, and you want to do a learning management site, think about multiple installations of WordPress and functionally isolating those types of things so that if, one thing gets hacked, your WooCommerce doesn't get hacked, and really ensure that, your WordPress site is dedicated to doing, one major thing. But if you're going to do like lots of different things in your business, that you consider like functionally isolate those things to create those kind of hurdles. Just like you would isolate functions in your business and, give least privilege to like, Sally might need to go update, the phone number on the website, but does she need to get access to all the plugins? So you would use roles and capabilities in order to isolate those types of things, and then also isolate those from each other, which leads me into.
I was one of the unfortunate victims of the IWP, the Infinite WordPress.
Oh, really?
Because I didn't realize I still had it on some old sites that I wasn't even using it anymore. But once it got into my server space, and I had several accounts, and this is before moving to Sentry, I will say that for sure. Because they actually migrated all my sites and cleaned them up for me from that hack. But it was a
nice.
Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Yeah, it's really great when you can have a hosting company like Sentry like partner with you on helping care of security, because security, there's so many different layers to it. There's your password, there's making sure everything's updated, making sure that you're functionally isolating things, but your host is a big part of making good quality security decisions. So it's great to have Sentry around as an option for people.
Absolutely.
And you guys, please tell me that Sentry like does not let people put 30 sites in like one account.
No, because they actually manage it for you. They won't do that.
That's awesome. I can't even tell you. Every time we would go into like a cPanel, it's like there's 30 sites in here, and every single one of them is hacked. Happens because they're running all under the same user on the server. PHP is running, so you get into one site, and then all of them end up getting infected. So,
full disclosure, that happened to me before as well. Before I knew anything about that, because I knew how to build a website, right? But I didn't know anything about hosting and all of those other things. And when I was first bootstrapping in, I didn't really know. I was trying to save money and trying to figure out the best ways to do things. And so I learned how not to do them in all the wrong ways.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say managed WordPress hosting that kind of has your back is definitely worth the investment.
It really is. Because what happening with this horror story was an agency in Brazil had 30 sites, and it was all their customers' sites, right? And they gave admin access to one of their customers, and that account got probably, password in a breach type of situation again. But that one site got compromised, and they went to the theme editor for that one site and took the 404 page and turned it into a backdoor, a PHP backdoor, just by wiping out the 404 in the theme editor and pasting in a PHP-based backdoor. And they appended a JavaScript redirect on every single JavaScript file in that entire hosting account. And so he had 30 sites all redirecting to the worst neighborhood on the internet. And for that agency, that was a pretty big pain point because every single one of their customers was affected. So, imagine those phone calls.
Yeah,
we were able to help them. And he, at the end of the cleaning, he's like, I think maybe I should move these into their own. I'm like, yes, please move these into their own. Yeah. I mean, once it happens, what happened with you, Michelle, is like, once you learn that, once you see it, it's like, you never forget.
Yeah.
So hopefully these lessons.
Nobody ever wants to say, well, I got hacked, because, it's like, oh, I'll build your website. I've been hacked before. It never sounds like a really good thing to say. But the truth of the matter is that somebody who has been hacked is probably one of the safest people to work with, because, man, it happens to you once and you put all of the security up that you possibly can.
Exactly. That's exactly true. I mean, well, WordFence exists because our CEO got hacked. Back in the day, his blog got hacked with the Tim vulnerability. It's really, Tim Thumb is like a file that resizes images and stuff, and it was included in a lot of themes. The funny thing is, it's like he went and wrote WordFence and made, that happen. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, I'm like dealing with my husband's site that got hacked from the same vulnerability, and just like, man, come on, So it's like, was so funny. It's like Tim Thumb got a lot of people back in the day into security, and that's why WordFence exists. So it's so anyway, so what would have helped? Obviously, functional isolation, better credentials, two authentication. Least privilege. If you're an agency, do your customers need to have admin access, or are you managing plugin updates? Can they just have author or editor access, or, don't give access? Just, a lot of agencies will be, Sally needs to have admin access because she's got to change the phone number on the page. Well, does she need admin access for that? So really being aware of that. No, she does. Sally doesn't need any admin access. Sally, we'll just change the phone number for you.
That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's something you can do also in your WP admin file is you harden that by putting you can just, this line here, define, disallow, file edit true. And you can turn off theme editing, because a lot of times, your site's live. You don't really need the theme or the plugin editor available once the site is live and launched. You might tweak it when it's in development, or maybe on a staging server that, might be more protected. But, making sure that only the functions that you need on your server are there. Yeah. So obviously, we talked about this before with the hurdles, but that layered security approach, a lot of people think, oh, well, I've secured my password. I've hidden. The big one that we hear a lot is, oh, well, I hid my login. Nobody can find my login. You have to type some secret phrase at the end of my URL to get to the, and my site's safe now, but that doesn't stop plugin vulnerabilities. It doesn't stop hackers really from discovering how to like log in. There's other ways of getting in. So it gives people like that false sense of security. So really important to take a layered security approach. You know, hide your login if you're seeing that it helps, if you have data to show that it's stopping like brute force attacks and things like that, go ahead and do that. But don't let it give you that, you know, false sense of security. And make sure you have some kind of protection. You know, you could use WordFence. The free version is pretty powerful, but there's tons of different ways of basically finding, detecting those intrusions and preventing them. Firewalls are great for that. The WordFence firewall has some built-in protections that really block a lot of like baseline attacks, like trying to find directory traversals, trying to send a request that allows them to see other things. And that there's a lot of blocks that WordFence will do, but great firewalls out there too. I'm not, you know, do what's right for you. Make sure you're scanning for malware. Do that fairly frequently, and also have some way of being able to detect when you might have a vulnerability. WordFence leverages the WP Vuln database, which is managed by a group of guys in the UK. And basically any security researcher finds a vulnerability in a plugin or a theme, they publish it there, and we use that in the WordFence scanner. So if you are using a plugin that has a vulnerability, it will alert you to that. So also good data to have. And just assume that things are going to go wrong. Make sure you have backups, make sure you have log files. If your hosting provider doesn't have access to log files, talk to them about making sure that you have that. A lot of cPanel accounts, so they'll set it up and it won't have logs enabled. And logs tell you when something's going wrong, and that information is really valuable. It's also really important to have those log files backed up too, because we've seen some attacks where they go and delete the log files, a way of sort of covering their tracks. And harden WordPress. So now that we've gone through this, you're ready to be a security Jedi, because you're going to use unique passwords.
Yes.
And you're going to use two-factor, and you're going to functionally isolate your sites and functionally isolate what you're having WordPress do. And you're going to look at security from a layered approach, from those hurdles. And never also assume that someone knows more about security than you. Security is something that you have to take ownership of. Don't think, oh, well, my host is going to take care of that. I don't need to think about password. I don't need to think about two-factor or any of this other stuff. Somebody else will think about that. Don't, it's something that each and every one of us, it's kind of like, oh, well, I'm not going to lock the doors because my husband always does that. Well, what if he, passes out watching football and he forgets, assume that something's going to go wrong. And security is everyone's responsibility. And always take responsibility and trust your Jedi mind to secure all the things. So that's it.
That's awesome. Those are some really good tips.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I apologize for my glitchy internet today. So I think I'm actually back with you now, which is a good thing. The first thing I'll say is Zach says, loving the Star Wars theme. So that was a hit. I think he means Star Wars theme he loves. If we're going to go full on Yoda. But I can do
Star Wars is always fun.
Everybody else, right? Exactly. So that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about, what you see coming down the pike, as far as, obviously we're all online right now. We're not doing in-person events and those kinds of things. Are there security issues? I know. I miss you. I miss seeing you and everybody.
Too.
I've never met Graham in person, and I've known him since forever now. So someday,
oh my gosh,
someday we'll all be together again. But with all of the online things that we're doing right now, I imagine that security is even a greater risk, because not only are we, there's Zoom bombing and those kinds of things, of course, but we're trying to share more online. We're trying to do more online. And so I think some of the password issues that you've said, shared, et cetera, are probably a really good way to remember that we have to be hyper vigilant. And just things like opening attachments from people you don't know.
Oh my gosh.
there's so many things that right now that because so much is online, we really need to pay attention to. So do you have any just kind of generic tips about things like that, especially with kids doing online schooling and more along those kinds of lines too, that might just want to, other than just our sites, but just keeping ourselves secure as well?
Yeah, it's really, really a good point. I mean, we're all kind of under a bit of duress, aren't we? I mean, this is not what people say, oh, there's going to be a new normal. I don't want that new normal. I don't like this at all. I'm very much of the mindset of I want my old life back and I want to go to WordCamps. And but we're all under some duress. And when we're under that kind of stress, our ability to process information is minimized, right? So when you're in a fear state, when you are under stress, your ability to really make good decisions is often compromised. And hackers take advantage of that. There's something called social engineering, and it kind of falls under the umbrella of social engineering. And what ends up happening a lot is that hackers will put people in further stress states, and they take advantage of that. So somebody calls up, and the least of us are like our parents and our kids. And some of us are the most vulnerable because they are so trusting and they want to trust and they want to make that human connection. So you'll have somebody call on a phone and get an elderly person, for example, and befriend them and then say, oh, no, you have to do this today. And then they put that duress of that time-based pressure on somebody who really is just looking for human connection. And education is really our biggest weapon against, the dark side of social engineering and they're taking the COVID stuff and they're turning that into an opportunity because they know we're under stress. They're using that as a tool to kind of get in. Oh, well, I need to know about this because fear of COVID or fear of my kids getting sick or fear of my mom who's in a nursing home, she might get sick. And so they prey upon fear and that time-based pressure, and they're hoping that you just slip. You slip and you make a bad decision. And it's really important to put sort of that buffer zone between making a decision and the pressure that's being placed. If it's really that important, you can wait 3 hours. You can talk to your mom, or you can talk to your kids, or you can talk to someone who's going to kind of give you some perspective. Well, maybe we should investigate. Is this a real company that's calling you? Or that's sending? Yes, trust but verify. Always. Because I mean, everybody's online, and my daughter's upstairs right now at school. So weird. And they've got Microsoft Teams that they're using. And so it's like, telling her, don't share this information and don't talk about where you live and don't, and really instilling in our parents and our kids and our friends who may not be so savvy. The woman who was doing my hair, she's like, I use the same password everywhere. Do you hate me? We need to have a conversation about this. It's like, they're not in tech. They're not seeing what we're seeing. They think everything's okay. They think their dog's name 123 is just fine. They don't realize that it's just a different world now. So education is important. And I think everybody who's watching today, everybody who's listening, you just got some tips about what's happened in the WordPress world. And, obviously the WordPress world is kind of unique in that it is the biggest CMS and it is under attack more than other CMSs or other commerce platforms. And so we're on the front lines. And that gives us a sense of responsibility, and not just to WordPress, but to our communities. So to be able to go to our parents and communicate with them about the threats that exist and how hackers work and how they think, so that we can share that. Each one of us that's here today is a little more of a security expert than someone else. So to be able to take that information and to share it, it just makes not only WordPress safer, it makes our community safer. Makes our kids and our parents and the people we love the most safer.
That's a really good point about WordPress and the scale of how big it is and how many people are using it. So I maybe have a question regarding people that are maybe looked at WordPress or thinking of coming to WordPress. They're probably going to Google what are the negatives? Why shouldn't I move to WordPress? And one of the things that might be circulating around there, rumors, might be that WordPress is more susceptible to security issues than other CMSs or other frameworks. What would you say to that?
Yeah, we hear that a lot. And if you just Google, is WordPress secure? I'm pretty sure one of our blog posts is right up there answering that question. Okay, so why are you using WordPress? Are you using WordPress because security is on a scale, right? And on one scale is like the most usable everything that gets hacked everywhere. And the other end of the scale is a computer that's encased and buried 6 feet underground. That's super secure, right? And so somewhere in the middle of that scale is security that's right for you and that's right for your site. So if you have a blog, you're going to treat that very differently, and you're going to tighten your login a lot different if it's just you in than if you have a learning management system and you have students all over the world, some of whom may be speaking a different language. You're going to be a little looser with the logins, a little more forgiving of those forgotten passwords, because it's a different use case altogether. The reason why WordPress is so powerful and popular is because you can do so much with it on the scale of what WordPress can do. It's pretty amazing. There's nothing really out there just like it, that you can take the same platform and do commerce, learning management, membership site, my blog, you name it, an events calendar. There's so many different things you can do with WordPress. And so in that regard, the power of WordPress, that which makes it so powerful and useful, is also the reason why it's such a big target. Does it mean you shouldn't use WordPress? Do you want to go code everything on your own and make it really obscure? Or do you just want to get to business and serving your customers? So you have to throw all of these things in the mix. And the security decision for Michelle is going to be different for me and my sites and what I'm doing and my husband's site and my mom's site. Everybody's got a different use case for security. And the thing that makes WordPress powerful is that it can meet you wherever you need to be for your site. Mm-hmm. So there's my soapbox moment.
I like your soapbox. It works for me. If I can piggyback on with just a couple of things that are non-WordPress related, just as long as people are thinking about security, there's been a lot, at least I've been targeted a lot lately by scammers through Facebook, through Twitter, through even games online like Scrabble online.
Really?
Who have this amazing grant that's supposed to help get you through COVID. Or this, and things like that, where they literally want you to give them $200 and then you'll get $30,000 back. Well, first of all, no grant works that way. They don't. And especially if they say you can give it to them in an iTunes gift card, you should run, because that's not how grants work. And every grant that you could possibly imagine, there's a huge vetting process, and you would need to, go through all kinds of application process, and they should prove to you who they are, not just ask you for credentials through a Facebook message, for example.
Right.
So if you are being targeted by any of those things, know that it's not legitimate, period. Even if it looks like it's coming from somebody that you think because they're actually spoofing other people's accounts at the same time. Yeah. So be super cautious about those kinds of things as well. Cybersecurity isn't just about your WordPress website. It's about all kinds of different things, your bank account, everything else. I think you made me think of when you were talking about the different kinds of security and everything. Like in the old days, people would take their money and put it in their mattress. So today, if you put all your money in your mattress, it can't be attacked by cybersecurity. But if somebody breaks into your house or your house burns down, your money's gone. So there is no perfect safe solution to any one thing, which is why you have to find what works right for you, but then also have the redundancies in place, et cetera. So,
there's
just so much.
I always say if you think about your house, you can put a security system on, you can put bars on the window, you could do so many different things, but if they really want into your house, they're going to get in. There's just, what are you going to do? You just do the best you can, because eventually, you know, I mean, it's not Darth Vader at your site trying to get in, right? It's just a bot. It's just a stormtrooper coming through. And what you really want to do is just let them, you know, go on their way. But if you don't have security on your site, if you don't have security on your house, it's like putting a sign in the front yard saying, "Come hack me."
That's right.
Come on in.
I'm going to take it. By the way, the money's in the mattress.
Exactly. And you don't want to do that. You want to make your house look like the most secure house on the block, and your WordPress site the most secure site that is on your IP block, I guess. So yeah, it's all just, you know, it's a psychological game, I think. You know, I mean, every year we go to well, we didn't this year because DEF CON was actually canceled, but we go to DEF CON and they have like these social engineering villages where people like try to socially they test out their hacking skills, and you get to watch what they're actually doing. And it's really amazing. The clever creativity that I kind of like the hacker mindset in that regard. And I kind of think of it like something we can learn from. It's not something to be afraid of and say, "Ooh, evil hackers, go away." It's really something you can learn from, and not to be too paranoid and too afraid of it, to not play with, you know, lock picking or whatever. Because it is good for the mind to be creative and to try new things. Absolutely. And to stretch out of limitations.
Right.
So.
Well, in the couple minutes we have left here, tell us a little bit about WordFence, how people can access it. I know that it's a freemium, right? So you can get it for free and you can pay for more. But give us a little bit about that so they know how they can protect themselves.
Sure, definitely. If you have a WordPress site and you go to your plugins dashboard, you can go to add new and just search for WordFence, or even WordPress security, and WordFence will pop up. It is freely available in the repository. The free version has about 80% of the functionality is there. We have, so it's blocks those malicious attacks. It's a scanner. It's going to scan for malware and tell you if you've been hacked, and it's going to tell you if you're running vulnerable versions of plugins. And it has login security tools, which includes that two-factor authentication. You can also put a reCAPTCHA on that. If you are having like a lot of brute force attempts, you can use reCAPTCHA, which is Google's service. You can tie that into your registration and login pages, and all that's free. And we also have a tool called WordFence Central, which is a centralized dashboard. So any site that you like, if you have one WordPress site, I'm sure you have more than one, because it's so easy to get started with WordPress. So we have a central system. So any site that's running WordFence, you authenticate to WordFence Central and you log into one place, and you can not only see all of your security events in one place, but you can also manage your WordFence installation. So say, for example, you want to change settings, like you want to tighten up locking out people on 3 different sites. You can create a template for WordFence and then push it out to those 3 sites so that you can tighten up the lockouts on those. You can anything you can do with WordFence, you can create templates and push those out to your sites. Makes it easy, like if you have to change an email address for where you want alerts to go to, or things, lots of fun things. And then it also has Central also allows you to do Slack notifications or SMS notifications, which is pretty cool too. So if you're and it's all free. You can use it with WordFence free. And then if you want the premium version, which unlocks immediate firewall rules, immediate mail signatures, and the real-time blacklist, that is $99 a year. And you can use that in Central as well, but you don't have to be a premium customer to use Central. We try to, you know, of course we want to keep the lights on, but we also want to keep WordPress safe. So, you know, if the services that.
Do you have is there geoblocking too? So
yeah,
there's a dentist in my town, and they got hacked, and they were getting hacked. Really? It was a DNS type thing, and it was coming from Russia. Well, the dentist in Rochester, New York, doesn't need to have any access to anybody outside of 50 miles from here, if even later maybe. So it wasn't like an Amazon or something where they want traffic internationally. So I was able to geoblock anything outside of New York State, actually.
Nice. Yeah, we have country blocking is part of the premium version. Yep. And so we really advocate that you only do that when you're seeing lots of problems.
Right.
Because we have seen people who like, well, I'm in Canada, I only need Canadian, I only need this. And they end up like blocking access to PayPal, Google, and all these other, and it's like, well, why doesn't any of this work? So it's like, making good decisions with geo-blocking and country blocking.
And then VPN can sometimes get around that anyway, right?
It does, but yeah, I mean, again, it's just kind of like making sure you don't have the sign in the front yard, just making it harder for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So they can just, and if they want to upgrade to WordFence Premium, they can do that right within the dashboard?
Yep, they sure can. They sure can. And also our mailing list is really valuable as well, because we have a team of analysts who are always looking for vulnerabilities in plugins. So there's one that's going to be published tomorrow on a plugin that has 100,000 installs. And so you want to be on that list. Because if you're not premium and you don't have those firewall rules already, you want to know that you need to update those plugins. So our mailing list is incredibly valuable, because as soon as that blog post goes out, that mailing is going to go out too. So you get it right in your inbox that there is a plugin that needs an update. So
I get those emails. I love those emails. They keep me informed for sure. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we let you go? I know your time is precious, and we want to make sure we're conscious of that.
Really happy that you guys invited me. This was a lot of fun. And go watch open.film. It was our love letter to the WordPress community. So we filmed that at 5 different WordCamps. Anyway, a lot of them. And it talks about the open source community that makes WordPress what it is. Because I honestly don't believe WordPress would be as powerful as it is without the community of people who contribute not only the code base, but also contribute to the education and the support and just the camaraderie that WordPress brings to the equation. It makes WordPress really special.
And getting to see Open Film at WordCamp US was amazing. And the fact that they put it right in the state of the word and everybody got to see it there was just phenomenal. So kudos to you and your team and WordFence for putting all of that together and making that love letter. That's what I think it is. It's a love letter to our community, and I think it's brilliant. So thank you for being instrumental in that, for sure.
Oh, well, it was an honor to be a part of it, and wasn't sure what it was going to turn into when it started, but our director, Sean Corbett, I just remember one Monday, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a movie. This is great. He really captured what WordPress is all about. So it was fun.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Kathy. If you want to follow Kathy on Twitter, it's at Kathy Zant. If you want to follow WordFence on Twitter, it's at WordFence. I suggest you follow both, because both Kathy and WordFence put out some pretty awesome content on the regular. And so appreciate so much all that you contribute to the WordPress community. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Anything you'd like to close with, Graham?
I think I've said everything. You've summed it up very nicely, Michelle. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, sorry for my cutting in and out. I think I finally got my internet squared away. I don't think I was hacked. I think it was just a case of bad internet. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate all that you do for us, and really look forward to catching up with you the next time we have an opportunity. So thank you so much. Everybody have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.